Good morning, everyone, and welcome to the Curriculum Committee's first meeting of the year. I'd like to introduce and welcome our committee board members, Rachel Gilliar, Adam Smith, and Annette Melkonian, and I'm welcoming Dr. Mioli as our liaison and Dr. Hines as our always honored attendee. I would like to ask this for a nomination amongst the committee for an election of the chair. Do we have a nomination?
I'd like to nominate Rachel Gilliar.
Rachel Gilliar is nominated. Rachel, do you accept the nomination?
I do.
Okay, does anyone have any objection, or can we say that Rachel is voted? Nanette?
I second the nomination.
Okay, then I believe it would be a 3-0 with nomination acceptance and second. That would make it a 3-0. Congratulations, Rachel. I will now turn over the meeting to you.
Thank you. So welcome everybody. We're excited to be back and to hopefully spend this year talking about curricular issues and be able to set COVID aside to focus on some of the important work of the district. And I know our administration is excited to do that with us as well. First, I just wanted to note for the schedule for the year, the curriculum committee has discussed, and our intention is to meet on Friday mornings throughout the year. The calendar will be updated with all the meetings, but it's approximately once a month on Friday mornings. And we hope and intend to also put the subjects of the meeting on the calendar as well, so that everybody's aware of what's coming up. So with that in mind, we wanted to spend this meeting setting our agenda for the year and discussing what topics we want to address as a curriculum committee this year. First, I wanted to talk a little bit about goal setting, because I know the curriculum committee has some things in mind about what we'd like to accomplish this year. We want our discussions to be significant and impactful and move the district forward. Informative too, because they always are informative, but we're hoping that we can partner with the administration to move some of the district goals forward on the committee. I do want to open it to everybody on the committee to talk about, but first I also wanted to read, in case people are not aware, we do have a policy on board standing committees, and that policy describes what the curriculum committee does. So I'm sorry, I'm pulling it up on my phone because I can't pull it up on my computer. I wanted to talk about that a little bit. Let me read it out loud, and then we can launch from there on what we expect to have out of the curriculum committee. So this is policy 2250.1, and it's the policy that addresses what standing committees of the Board of Ed are and how they function. And this is the description of the curriculum committee in that policy. It says, conducts and/or coordinates curriculum studies undertaken by the board, periodically reports to the board on the status of the curriculum and suggests areas in need of study, periodically studies and reports on student progress and on standardized tests, evaluates curriculum in view of curriculum developments. So that's just good information for us to have in the background. Remember, board policy is set by the board. So if we think that this description does not do the committee justice or should be adjusted, that's something that we can think about doing in the future. The other members of the committee, Adam and Nan, do you want to jump in now and talk a little bit about what your, oh, you know what? One other thing I want to add before I let you talk, sorry. So everybody who's been following us closely knows that Dr. Hines gave us a presentation in mid-September on the district goals for this year. And I think there are a couple of things that we should be keeping in mind as a curriculum committee. First of all, the overall objective was to strive for excellence, strive for consistency, target and exceed desired and defined benchmarks and measurable outcomes. And the other thing is that goal number one is curricular-based changes that support and enable the new vision and mission. Under that, the presentation has enhanced curriculum maps, project-based learning, and portfolio assessments, develop a common understanding, and integrate whole child education, physical, cognitive, social, and emotional growth, professional development, and ICT and PEP integration and review. So that's the curricular-based goal in our district goals. Adam and Nan, would you like to jump in and maybe we can have a conversation about some of the priorities of the curriculum committee and where we think we should be heading this year?
Nan, do you want to go first?
Sure, thank you. We kind of brainstormed a little bit, and some priorities that we've talked about is returning to a couple of things that were started last year, but really need to kind of be buttoned up a little bit. We were interested in talking again about the homework policy and how that integrates with curriculum. Obviously the giftedness was presented last year, and it's being considered in terms of NYU. So we would like to take a look at that more deeply. Of course, in my mind, I am always interested in the English and Social Studies honors programs at the high school, and that was looked at quite a few years ago at this point. So potentially a review of that and how that is going now that it's had some changes in a couple of years to be initiated. We discussed core extension last year, so potentially looking at that and an update of that. And another important one that I wanted to mention was potentially looking at reading instruction at the elementary level in terms of general instruction and then intervention services. So that's a good beginning of what I have as a very long list.
Adam, go ahead.
Sure. So I won't go into a very specific list since I think Nan actually hit most of the topics, but I will second specifically that everyone knows that the early childhood reading program and intervention is a very important one to me. So I am particularly glad that Nan brought that up. Just generally speaking, Rachel, thank you for reading that policy and thank you for reading the goals. And I think that what we really need to do this year is figure out how to use this committee to make sure that all of the curricular items that we're focusing on and really like the curriculum overall in the district is leading into these goals of excellence and consistency. And we need to use Dr. Hines and Dr. Mioli to figure out how we as a board can support them and the staff in achieving those goals. So I think that we need to, and you and I and Nan and Dr. Mioli have talked about this, we need to, I think, shift the focus of this committee from a presentation, to the board and the community to more of a focus on, what do we want to achieve? How are we going to achieve it? And how are we measuring that we're doing that how? And I don't necessarily have the answer at this moment, but I think that, as we set the agenda today, we can really be thinking about measurable outcomes and how we as a board can help the district be successful in achieving the goals that we've set with Dr. Hines.
Yeah, and I'm in accord with you. I think that all of us on the committee want to make sure that there is significance to what's being done here, which I think means presentations and information is fantastic. I happen to think educating the board and educating the community on the programs that are going on in the school is important. But at the end of the day, the question needs to be, what can the board do to support the administration? What does the administration need from the board? And what direction do we want to be heading in? I mean, I'm personally very excited about the district goals. I think that we should continue to highlight them with the committee, with the community, because having an overall outlook, like an overall objective towards excellence and consistency and trying to elevate the district is something I think a lot of parents have been asking for a very long time. And I'll credit Dr. Mealy with this. I know he's used the term fresh eyes for looking at things. And I think the fact that Dr. Mealy and Dr. Hines are ready to evaluate what's been happening here and figure out what direction the district should be moving in conjunction with our profile of a graduate and creating a new vision and mission means it's a really exciting time in Port Washington. And I think we as the committee want to provide a place where the board can have some input and we can highlight some of the issues that are important. Nan, you kind of previewed, I think, a little bit the updates from the 2020-21 meetings, but I just wanted to update the public that there is a recommendation on homework policy that is working its way up to the board and that the board should have soon once it's finalized. And at that point, we can probably have another public discussion on homework. When we all spoke about homework last year, we partly had agreed to put it to the side and to revisit this year because we do have this NYU equity work that is coming back, and we thought there might be some implications for it there. So homework will definitely be a topic that we address later in the year once we have this recommendation, which I've been told should be soon, actually. Giftedness, same thing. We said that we would revisit after we had the NYU work. This ties in with the district goal of assessing and reevaluating the PEP program, but could tie in to other programs as well, because of course that's not the only program that touches gifted education in Port. The other issue was core extension that we felt was incomplete at that point, but I know our administration is continuing to look at it based on that meeting and that feedback, and I anticipate at some time in the future we'll have another meeting about that as well, and maybe some more information. I think that is all the topics that were ripe for updates from last year. So I can't say when, but they're all coming. And then I guess for setting the agenda for this year, I know Dr. Mealy had some topics that he wants to discuss this year, and a presentation that he's going to tell us as well. The other things that I have on my list, I think Nan didn't mention, we talked about doing an assessment of the programs that were funded with COVID money from the federal government, including the summer programs, just to discuss publicly and confirm if that is where the money should be going next year. Everybody should be aware that we have a newly functioning ICT program in Port Washington. It's run out of the Sousa School. The plan was to have several grades this year and have the grades added next year. And if anybody's interested in learning more about ICT programs in general, the curriculum committee had a fantastic presentation on ICT programs when Dr. Hines first wanted to add them to our school offerings, which was unfortunately right before COVID. So we actually had it in the budget for the 2020, 2021, do I have those dates right? School year. And then when COVID hit in March of 2020, and we had to revamp the whole budget and be looking at everything differently, unfortunately, the ICT programs were cut. So everybody was very excited to be able to add them back in this year. I anticipate that at some point we'll get an update here on how the ICT program is going. But if I can be presumptuous and guess, I would think that our administrators would like to give us that update when they actually have an update to give. So probably spring that we'll talk about it. And I don't know that it needs to be a whole meeting. I think it'll just be an update. The And the other thing I have on my list is maybe an update on Ruler, which again, we've had a very thorough presentation on, I think actually several in this committee over the last couple of years. But it's a fantastic program and it is being expanded to several more schools in the district. So that's something I expect that we will get an update on again later in the school year. Dr. Mioli, do you want to jump in and talk about the presentation that you're planning to bring to us and the couple of other things that were on your list?
Thank you. I just really want to kind of tie together a couple of things. You read the goals of the board and the superintendent in terms of curriculum. And obviously, I'm spending a good deal of time attending to those already. So we are well on our way to starting curriculum mapping. And we actually had a series of demos this week and a committee of teachers and administrators who are about to choose the platform to go with. So we are very confident that we'll be ready to start that process by the November 4th Superintendent's Conference Day, which is a great opportunity for teachers to have more than 1 hour to work on something as expansive as this. And then if I can just kind of jump ahead a little bit, you know, we have our portrait of a graduate, which is again, our North Star, and kind of helps us understand where we want to end up and where we want our students to end up. And we have restarted, I should say, our curriculum mapping. We had them in the district for a number of years, and we need to reestablish them, which we will do this year, starting very soon. But the reason that I asked the committee, notwithstanding the fact that I know we're moving away from presentations, the reason that I asked to have Jean Painter come and discuss some things with us is because I think it's important for all of us to see what that looks like. So when we start realigning those arrows, what could that look like in terms of the curriculum and a unit of study, in terms of some different ways that we look at curriculum, instruction, and assessment, and particularly curriculum and assessment. And so Jean is a professor at Johns Hopkins University, and she's also, I want to get it right, the president of the Maryland Coalition for Gifted and Talented Education. That's her background. And so I think it also, I think her expertise will be able to help guide us with our look at PEP as well. And she has a book called Teach to Develop Talent, which I think is just marvelous. And I think it gives us, talk about fresh eyes, I think it gives us a real lens to look at how we can start realigning some of the things that we do to help us get to that portrait of a graduate, though all those competencies that the board has already identified as competencies we want to see our graduates leave with, you know, as soon as we can. It's going to take us a while to get there, but it's not going to be a straight line. So I'm looking forward to having Jean come in November and talk a little bit about some of the things that she's been doing in this arena.
That's great. And I mean, just to be clear, I think, Dr. Bioli, we have a spectrum of opinions on the curriculum committee and on the board overall, as always. And I think it's great, right? It adds to lively conversations and discussion. And I appreciate the fact that you are able to handle all of us saying different things to you. Personally, I'm not opposed to having a presentation, and I happen to think that you're really good at them. I think last spring, you presented on the issue of giftedness, and then we had a conversation about it. It was a long presentation. It was detailed, but it was very informative. And if we're going to be making recommendations or requests of the administration about the direction that we want the district to go in. And if community members are going to be talking about our programs, I think it's really helpful to understand the philosophical underpinnings about educationally why we do something, and also the detail of what the programs look like now, because this is the way boards of ed function, right? We are mostly not professional educators, even in past lives, and so we need to learn from all of you. Does anybody on the committee have anything else you want to add in detail about any of these topics, or any other topics that we want to throw out there?
I think Adam has his hand up.
Yeah, I just wanted to say that, Dr. Muley, is that I wasn't meaning to suggest that we're moving away from presentations, and I second what Rachel said. My point about the presentations is that I would like to see, and I think everyone, at least Rachel and Nan, are in agreement with this. Correct me if I'm wrong. That the presentation should be, not just FYI. It should have a reason. This is why we're doing this. This is how we're going to make it successful, and this is how we're going to. There has to be some follow up for the board, other than us coming and spending an hour to be presented something. There needs to be some action that the board can take away, and something that we can maybe come back in 6 months or a year and follow up and say, is this in fact working the way we want it to? And if not, what should we change? So I think the presentations are not something that should disappear. It's more, I think the second half of the meeting there has to be a follow up to why we had that presentation, and what are we going to do about it? Does that make sense?
Yes, I think last year being my first year on this committee, at least in my head, I was setting the table with a lot of those presentations for where I knew we were going. So I guess I just have to be more explicit about the where we're going part.
I thought your setting the table was great. I think you provided a lot of background information. And look, I think that you and Dr. Hines are clearly partnering together to think about the big picture of the district, and then from there think down to the more detailed level of where we need to be going based on this, and I really appreciate it.
Thank you.
The other topic that actually I have on my list, we had discussed last year having a meeting about the opportunity gap. And we didn't end up fitting it in. It was probably going to be a little premature because I'm sure NYU is going to touch on this. Dr. Hines or Dr. Mioli, do you want to jump in about status on that? Is that something that we could be adding to the curriculum agenda this year?
Yeah, I'll take that. I'm actually going to try to not kill two birds, but maybe harm them a little bit with one stone. Good morning, everybody. It's great to see you all, especially on a Friday. Let me start with the table that Dave set last year first, which I think many of us are still full from, by the way, because he did a lot of setting and a lot of creating and disseminating of common language and understanding of what curriculum instruction and assessment is, which is incredibly important with every single thing that we were doing within our school district, clearly because of the district goals that we now have, which will funnel into our strategic plan. I just want to not gently remind, but I think I want to contextualize what this means when any change is made throughout a school district. And Peter Senge out of MIT wrote a book many years ago talking about systems thinking within a school system, schools that learn, for those of you who want to read a book and maybe fall asleep at night because it's over 500 pages, but it shows the interconnectedness of how everything plays off of each other within the school system and how incredibly complex it is, especially when it comes to anything that's new and different. So the fact that we are now focusing on gifted and talented, which I know since I've been here, since my inception here, has been a focal point for this board as far as wanting us to take a deep dive. And I think some of us may have said there are other implications because of that in a positive way. But anytime the board, the superintendent, makes a decision to move in a different direction, it impacts the administrators, it impacts the teachers, it impacts the staff, which hopefully then impacts kids and the parents, and then there's the community at large. And when you have a system as large as ours or any school system, there are things that have to take place internally before those things move forward. And I think Mr. Smith was intimating about what some of those things are, and they take time. The question becomes, how much time do we have when we talk about action items, when we talk about measurable outcomes, benchmarks, all those things that are very important as far as measurement tools. So we know, A, we're moving in the right direction, and B, it's making the impact that you all want. It's very important. So, with that being said, I had a really great meeting with all of our administrators yesterday, reiterating the fact, yes, we're in a pandemic, but we are moving forward. All systems moving forward. And your job here as a board, my job as a superintendent, is support this and to make sure they continue to move forward. And so I'm very proud of that, and I'm very thankful for the board to allow this to happen. So Rachel, to answer your question regarding the opportunity gap, I think very clearly NYU will totally address not only the opportunity gap, but also because of that, what the outcomes have been over the past X amount of years, and some things that this district should consider moving forward from a policy standpoint, from a curriculum instruction and assessment standpoint. Doesn't mean they're all starting next year, by the way. It just means that we're looking at it and we're going to plan out and chart a course as to how to decrease disproportionality as far as outcomes for all of our students. And so we will, when you have the draft, which I know I've been saying is coming your way and it's not there yet, it is coming soon. And then we will begin to address the opportunity gap, and then what happens because of that, and then create a plan moving forward.
Thank you. So not to pin you down, but to pin you down. So it sounds like it is something that we could consider putting on this agenda, but we want to do it once we have more information from NYU. And at this point, that's due back by November?
Yeah, my hope is to have NYU share their information with us, with the board in November. And so the sequence of events and to bring all the leadership, and we'll talk about this a little bit more. So we're all on the same page before we roll it out anywhere. So my target date is time, I should say, is November, and they're aware of this.
Okay, so it's something that we could have a curriculum conversation about maybe in the new year, it sounds like.
Yeah, I would say in the spring, probably, March, April, maybe.
Okay. And obviously, I mean, maybe this goes without saying, but I think NYU, I don't sit on the committee. I haven't seen any of the stuff. So I don't even actually know what form it's going to take or when it's going to come to us. But I'm assuming because of the nature of the complicated issues we're addressing, it's not like they're going to have a series of recommendations that are straightforward and easy, and we're going to dole it out to the right committee and snap our fingers and just do it. I think it's going to be an ongoing discussion of, here's this consultant's report. This is what they recommend. Let's talk about it. Let's make sure our staff is bought into this. Let's make sure that it's right for our community. Let's make this decision methodically to make sure we're making the right decision.
Definitely. There's a lot of different edges to it. And by the way, I mean, we all have to be in agreement with it, right? So they may recommend X, Y, and Z, and we only may want to do X and Y. And then what does that mean? Because as you know, there are a lot of things that are attached to it, from professional development to lots of internal conversations and then what those implications are from a budgetary standpoint to, making sure we have enough bodies in our school district to cover teachers potentially if we have PD. So there's a lot of things for us to consider. But I will say this with most certainty, is that when it comes to next year, we're not looking to make any seismic shifts. We're looking to have a lot of conversations and to really plan out what that looks like, and to assess what we currently have in front of us, because we've just scratched the surface as far as our assessment of our district is concerned.
Great. I have another question for the two of you. So one of our district goals includes this ICT and PEP integration and review. And so we just talked about having the ICT discussion here be more of an update, since we've already had a detailed discussion about ICT classrooms. We're bought into the need for them. Obviously, they're being rolled out. PEP is a little bit different because this district commissioned a consultant's report on PEP about 6 years ago at this point. Nan, do you know the date? I think it's like
2017.
I was going to say 2017. So 4 years ago. But I think it was right before I joined the board. So it's a mostly entirely different board that commissioned the report. There was a discussion of it, but as far as I know, there wasn't a lot of action on it, and maybe we were in a different budgetary position at that time. We had a different board, we had a very different administration. PEP hasn't been looked at in that kind of detail since then, and I'm wondering what Dr. Hines and Dr. Muley, what you're thinking could be the content of a curriculum meeting about PEP. Obviously, this committee is not going to be doing the full review of the PEP program, right? That's something that's going to be happening at the administration level. So when do you think would be most fruitful for us to have that meeting about PEP? And is this part of our part 2 on giftedness, or does it happen separately? Because I think PEP and giftedness, they overlap, their Venn diagrams overlap, but they're not necessarily exactly the same thing. So are those two conversations? Is it one conversation? And what can we expect during that conversation?
I think it's my turn, Dr. Hines, so I'll go. I'm going to first not answer the question and then hopefully answer the question. One of the ongoing discussions we're having at the administrative level is what kind of shifts in thinking do we have to have in order to shift what we're doing to shift where we want our students to be. So I would, I think part of the answer to your question is we need to think about how we're delivering instruction in more metacognitive ways, in bigger picture ways to all children, how we're challenging all children. And that's not to say that we don't talk about PEP, but I think there's a bigger issue there. I think there's a bigger issue with honors English. I think there's a bigger issue with core extension. I think one of the things that we want to look at is getting away from those, or starting to move away from those individual pieces that make up part of the fabric of what we do, and to look at the bigger picture and how, again, we can realign our arrows to help with better student achievement. And by now that we've more clearly defined what that looks like, I think we have to include a lot more personal and individual elements for children than we have been in the past, in terms of social and emotional learning, in terms of skills that we have not, that are not necessarily always academic. So now I'll answer your question. I think the first thing that I've already started discussing with the PEP teachers is, again, a fairly new paradigm for them. We have 2 new teachers. not new totally, but new, this year to the program. And the reason that I think one of the biggest reasons the board supported that addition was because we saw how successful the the enrichment part was during the pandemic. So I think one of the things we can definitely look at is how that mix has changed this year with that addition, and how successful it's been to work with classes, which we did again years ago, and I'm happy to see that we're doing it again. So that mix of gifted core program and push in, if you will, or instruction for all of the children, I think is a really good thing for us to look at, to start to look at.
So just for the informational purposes of anybody who's listening, I just want to give a little more detail on what you just said to make sure everybody understands it. So we've always had this PEP program. Over the years, we went down in the number of teachers from 1 per building in the elementary schools in Weber to much, much lower, and then started building them back up. And literally just now, mere months ago, a 6th PEP teacher was added back in. So we're back up to 1 at Weber and 1 at each of the elementary schools. And I think to give a long history very briefly, obviously this, if you have 2 PEP teachers or 3 PEP teachers versus 6 PEP teachers, what the PEP teachers cover is very, very different. So Dr. Mioli just noted enrichment was done this past year for everybody. In the elementary schools, PEP was a special, and all children got PEP once a week. And when you have more PEP teachers, you have more push into the classrooms, so more for everybody. I happen to support it. I think it's a wonderful addition that we would have more going to all our students. I just want to, I appreciate all your answers, and they sound great. To me, I'm sort of starting to think that maybe there is a conversation down the line that's an update on PEP from all of you, but maybe the giftedness conversation happens separately, because like I said, they don't totally overlap, because ideally, and I think this is where we're at now, our PEP program serves our accelerated learners with the core group, but it serves all of our elementary school students as well with this push-in. And the giftedness, you're right, has implications for our Weber curriculum and our high school curriculum. You mentioned the English honors, things like that. Are you comfortable with us putting it on the agenda as 2 separate meetings, and we address giftedness again, maybe with a conversation overall about our programs and what needs to be done to assess if we're doing what we need to be doing, and reaffirm that we're good with what we're doing, and then have a separate update on PEP? Or am I giving you too much on this, or separating it in a way it shouldn't be separated?
I will continue not answering your questions and then answering them. I think when you hear Jean Painter, I think she will give you a lens on exactly what you just said, that will be very refreshing, and I think it may inform how we move forward. But certainly, again, as I've said many times, if you'd like to separate them, I'm happy to separate them.
So Jean Painter, do we have a tentative date on her?
Yeah, the November meeting, which I think is the 29th or something like that.
Perfect.
I don't have the dates in front of me.
Rachel, can I interrupt? I just want to make sure you see that there's a lot of hands raised from some
Yeah,
of the
and
other
you're not
topics still. Okay.
I didn't see it, and you're not interrupting, because you
Got it.
are a committee chair.
No,
And
I didn't want to interrupt.
No, I totally missed the hands raised. I didn't see the
Yeah.
participants.
So I think myself, Nan, and Emily all. So I just want, before we started a new topic, I didn't want to forget what I wanted to say.
So Adam, since you are unmuted, go ahead and jump in.
Okay, sorry.
Nan,
So
since
I'm
you're
going to
the
jump back
beginning.
to the previous topic, and specifically the answer that Dr. Hines had given. I'm having a little just because I want to try to like set everything into kind of like a concrete way and understand our plan. Dr. Hines, you were talking about getting the NYU report. You had also talked about some groups of staff that were meeting to try to distill, I guess, that report and start thinking about how to, what recommendations to take, how that all matches together with the vision and mission. Then, of course, we have this curriculum committee that we're trying to understand what our role is. And of course, the greater board. I'm just like having a hard time in my head tying together how all of this is going to work in a way that is going to lead to, a successful rollout of the new vision and mission, and not just like a lot of different groups meeting. And I'm just a little concerned that the way that you're talking about it and the way that we're structured, I'm just not sure how it's all going to tie together in kind of the time frame that we have. Can you talk a little bit about how you envision people not stepping on each other's toes and everybody kind of, feeding together and dovetailing?
Definitely. Yeah, and I think you have every right to be concerned because there's a lot going on. I mean, there really is. And the last thing we want to do is waste anybody's time trying to get to a place that maybe we can get to in a more efficient and effective way. So let me start with NYU first, because I think that is first and foremost as far as informing the board as far as what their recommendations are. When that takes place, again, the target is November. From there, we will begin to have conversations with leaders that would be implementing whatever said recommendations are moving forward. I think that is really important. And I don't think that's going to take too long. As far as what we're doing here, I heard about all these potential initiatives. I caution us to think about less is more and not take on too many things that we want to. I'll give a great example, even though it's probably not the best example. When we sit on the policy meeting, there, usually there's like, 6 or 7 or 8 policies sometimes per meeting that you're looking to upgrade, update, make changes to. That's a totally different animal than what we are looking to do here. So my recommendation would be, if there's anything from this committee that we're looking to have conversations about potentially change, I recommend that we go between first and second gear initially this year, and then look at a time frame and a timeline as to how we could make those changes. So I think what Dave is setting up with Gene Painter is very important, because it touches upon a few things that this committee and the board by itself, with the goals that we have set forward, talks about, which is an audit of the gifted and talented program that we have here with PEP. So I don't see anything that is going to have a lot of wheels or plates spinning and then we get nowhere. And I'll share that with the board, is because what I'm working on right now, Adam, is a bunch of timelines that will help us converge to one outcome. So you'll see that a lot more clearly. And if at any point I think we're doing too many things at once, I will let you all know right away.
So that's really helpful and makes a lot of sense. Do you have, so that being said, do you have any advice for how we set the agenda of this committee? Like, for example, for the Budget and Facilities Committee, Kathy O'Hara and I have been working on setting the budget, the agenda for the year. And she's been very helpful in kind of like suggesting what we would talk about each week, how that ties into what she wants to do, and how we lead to the budget calendar, which I know is very objective. How do we do something like this here that will allow us to use our time well to help you?
Sure. So what I can do with the committee's permission is let me speak to Dr. Mioli offline, and then we can we will share some recommendations with you all as far as, how we can proceed forward in a way that's going to be very effective. And I agree with the way, the example you just came up with Kathy O'Hara. I think that'll be very helpful. So Dr. Mioli and I can talk offline and then share something with this committee.
Is that okay, Rachel? Sorry to.
No, I think that's exactly right, and it's perfect. I mean, I think the goal of today is for us to be able to all speak publicly on what topics we think are the ones that we should be addressing. And fortunately, I think that the administration and the board are very much on the same page about the objectives and the goals, and that's great. But I'm sure, I'm sure that Dr. Muley actually has already a list in his head and tentative dates. And the truth is, even though we are, it's our committee, we need him, right? The Board of Ed sitting here discussing curriculum by ourselves and not in partnership with the administration accomplishes nothing. So I think it's a good moment that we're all partnering very, very well together. I just want to note that Jean Painter, I have down that our meeting is November 19th for anybody who's listening. It sounds like a great way to start the year. And I think that we kind of have our tentative list. And Dr. Muley, if you can get back to us on when you think these topics are ripe to be discussed, that would be great. And maybe we go from there. Emily, you had your, oh, sorry, Nan, you have your hand up. You go first, and then I'll call on the rest of the board.
We kind of covered it all, so I'm gonna.
You're good?
Yeah.
Okay. Emily, did you still have a comment?
No, actually, Adam Smith took my comment, and my only concern was that we kind of geared towards getting topics that are related to our goals and our what you guys originally started talking about, and that being more assessment based. But I think Adam kind of put that in play. So
I think we're all on the same page. I really do. I think that we're all on the same page that we want these meetings to be informative, but really be goal-based as well. That it's a place for the board to put some input into these decisions and discuss them publicly as well. But it's part of the direction, the overall direction that we have all decided the district is moving in.
just a process reminder for everybody, right? As soon as your meeting dates have been set, we have committed to ourselves and to the greater public that we will be posting our dates on the website with the agenda items attached, right? So just as a reminder, once you got that all done.
We have our dates set already. I actually haven't checked to see if the calendar was updated yet. I think so, but I haven't checked.
The board hasn't received them, right? So we haven't seen them as a board. So I don't know.
As a board, you've seen them.
All the dates? I haven't seen it. I didn't.
Yeah, I sent them to the whole board, but it was like a month ago, probably, to make sure that there were no other conflicts. But we will get them on the calendar, and as we figure out what the topics are of all of those meetings, we will get that on the calendar, as well as any supporting information that anybody needs.
Perfect, thank you.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure that we have them all on the calendar already without topics. Can I just say one other thing?
Of course.
Again, I try to be intentional because I am at heart a teacher, even though I'm not in the classroom anymore. And I just want to kind of harken back. The reason I used the John Kennedy speech at the very beginning of this year, when we talked about vision and mission, and when we introduced Portrait of a Graduate, is because when he stood at Rice University and spoke about going to the moon by the end of the decade, there was a phrase in there that has always stuck with me, and I think it's important to remind ourselves of now. And that is, he said, we're going to bring men to the moon and bring them safely back to Earth using alloys that have yet to be invented. So, we have set this North Star, we've set this goal, and I don't think it's something shameful to say that we're not exactly sure how we're going to get there. Of course we want to be intentional, of course we want to plan, but I think we have to acknowledge that there are a lot of people who are going to work together to get us there, and things are going to evolve and be developed and be invented as we move forward. So certainly we will try to lay out an agenda and all those things. But I think we also need to, I think it's healthy for us to remember that as things evolve, we'll be able to take advantage of some new thoughts and some new insights.
I think that's a very good point. I mean, the other thing is, Dr. Hines mentioned we should try and make sure that we're being slow and methodical about this. And I think he's partly saying that because once you say that your objectives as a district are excellence and consistency, and you say you want to challenge every child, those really simple sentences are giving you a very large, very complicated mandate that is not something that is going to be accomplished in 1 year even. It's even the organizational structure of it alone to actually achieve that is very different. And I know that this administration really believes it when they say challenge every child. But it means really looking at what we're delivering as an education. And I really appreciate about you, Dr. Meoli, that you're very deliberate. So thank you for this and all the additional work that you're about to put in for all of these meetings. Do I have any more comments from the board overall? Do any board members not on the committee want to add something or make a suggestion on a topic we haven't covered yet, or anything that you think the curriculum committee should be discussing this year? I see nothing. It means we've done an amazing job already. How about members of the public? I see we have 8 attendees who could jump in with a question or a comment. I see GGB. I think that is you, George Borda. I'm going to let you talk. Let's see. You should be able to unmute now.
Oh, can you hear me?
Yep.
Yeah, well, good morning to everyone. I just want to make some comments. As you all know me, I'm mostly a meat and potatoes guy. And what I was thinking as I was listening, first of all, there is like a new direction, which is very welcoming. But, I would challenge you to survey parents. Do they really understand what the standing committees of the Board of Education mean? Or what do they do? Or why do they even exist? There is a reason why there are only 3 members of the Board of Education, 3 trustees in these committees, because if there were 4 of you, you would be a Board of Education, a formal Board of Education meeting. So you have to stay away from that quorum. These standing committees are, yes, great for presentations, but they have to have a purpose. This is a place where the marketplace of ideas come from parents, stakeholders, community, and not only hear what is going on through the committee, but they make their own suggestions too. This is where the real work of the Board of Education is done. It is the standing committees that make ultimate recommendations to the full board, either to approve, not to approve, they make a recommendation actually. I don't think parents really understand what are these standing committees. They are not just a regular one of the many committees that are in the district. They are not. Please correct me. I'll be more than glad to be publicly told I don't know what I'm talking about. And the importance of these standing committees has to be understood, because this is where the actual work happens. And this is where debate and going back and forth of ideas go on, and the board members that are present with the superintendent get sort of an idea as to where the community, where the administration, and so on want to go. And then they can make a recommendation to the full board. So all I'm saying is, you know, I was watching that lady from Facebook testify in Congress. My God, she was so eloquent, so clear, plain speaking, right? None of these technical jargon. It was very clear to understand what she was telling us about Facebook. So please, if I'm wrong, or I'm saying something that is totally incorrect, no offense, correct me, tell me, George, you don't know what you're talking about. I'd be more than glad to hear that. But just the last words, the standing committees, the curriculum committee is really where recommendations to the full board are made. And of course, the full board, meaning 4 or more members, make their approval, disapproval, or whatever. So again, I don't think parents know what this is just one of the many committees that are going on floating around the district. I don't think so. I mean, this is not the purpose that we're constituted. Anyway, thank you, and thank you for the new initiatives.
Thank you, George. If I can highlight a kernel of what you said, I think that what you're getting at is there is a value to the discussion itself with the board and with the community, and that's a way that we also get aligned on what our goals are and what people actually want from our schools. I think that's what you're getting at, and I agree with that point wholeheartedly. So thank you. I have another hand from a community member, Teodora, I believe. I'm going to unmute you. Go ahead. You should be able to unmute yourself now.
Yes, hi. I would like to second what Mr. Borda just said. I think that you guys appear to be disconnected from the parent community right now. It is indicative that there's only a few of us present here. I would like to advocate for the concerns of parents in our district. And I think that you guys have to find a way to talk to us and put your hand on the pulse of what's really happening and what our concerns are. Thank you.
I hope that you are not right, that we're disconnected. We're trying very hard not to be. I think that I can speak for the entire board when I say that. I also, keep in mind, board members are individuals. I think one of the strengths of the board is that we have a variety of people from a variety of different backgrounds with children of different ages. And so we try, and we do, I would note, have a number of new initiatives this year that are aimed towards trying to connect with the community better, to liaise with the different organizations and to be more open to the public. You are always welcome, and everybody is always welcome to email the entire Board of Ed at BOE@portnet.org if you have a comment. I would be remiss if I didn't say, though.
We should plug the community forum.
That's what I was just about to.
I want to add one more thing, and then I'm going to give you the community forum plug. But obviously not outside the chain of command. If you have an issue with your teacher, if you have an issue with your school, you should still be talking to your teacher. You should still be escalating to your building principal. The board is not an avenue around those things. But if you have overall feelings about the direction of the district and input that you think we should have, email us anytime. Emily, go ahead. You want to talk about the community forum?
I was just about to talk about the.
Excuse me, may I respond to this, please?
Sure, Theodora.
Yeah, I would like to please tell you that meetings in person are no longer what, meetings on Zoom are no longer what this community needs. What's happening right now is a disconnection in itself. I don't have the ability to see everyone present. You can't see me. You're telling me to email. I have emailed my teachers and given them notes every day. My teachers are not who should be on the receiving end of what my concerns are right now. And you are very, very disconnected from the concerns of the community right now. This morning, parking lots were full of parents who were so confused about the latest testing requirements. Parents are running to pediatricians to clear their kid for a runny nose so they can bring them back to school. This is not the teachers, this is not the principal's concern, which is why I'm not going to flood my teachers with emails or notes. I haven't even met my teachers in person, and I want to tell you that telling me right now to email the Board of Education is not going to solve this. We have gone too far. I'd like to call that you guys consider a town hall meeting, an in-person
So
meeting,
thank you.
invite all the
Theodora,
parents.
Theodora, I don't want to cut you off, but that is
Yes,
exactly.
I know you're going to cut me off. I know you have a different agenda. I know,
No,
but
I
I'm
don't.
speaking
No,
for
I
a
don't.
lot.
No, I
I'm
don't.
speaking for a lot of people here. I'm speaking for so many people who have babies, who have jobs to go to, okay? And they are stressed, and this has gone too far. Okay, so
Okay,
I
well,
hope that you have that in mind as you go
So
along with your day today.
we do
Thank you.
appreciate.
We have a community forum scheduled, right?
do
We do have a
appreciate
community
that.
forum scheduled, and it will be in person. And I mean, I would reiterate what I said. We do
Rachel,
always want to hear from you, and there are the type of concerns that you're describing are not necessarily for your teacher, right? Your teacher doesn't have any control of the parking lot. I'm still not clear on the details, but I
Rachel.
think we're open to hearing from you. Go ahead, Emily.
So we do have a forum on October 20th. It is going to be at the Triborough High School auditorium. It'll be at 7 p.m. It will be in person. Our meetings are all, our Board of Education meetings are all in person. Our virtual meetings are only the committee meetings, which are during the day. Those meetings are virtual by means of the open meeting law being allowed through the extension from the governor because of the pandemic. We have committed as a board to reassess it once that changes sometime in January. That expires that in January. So we are committed to being as open to the community and accessible to the community as possible. We appreciate all the feedback from the community, and we hope that the community does attend our forum, where it will be more of a conversation about things that we as a district are doing well, and things that our community would like to see us do differently or do better. So that information is going to be going out in the coming week with more details. So just stay tuned for that.
And adding one other thing, I mean, our morning committee meetings are usually very much on a certain topic, right? The curriculum committee covers curriculum and instruction. The policy committee covers policy and personnel. The budget committee covers budget and facilities. But if you have a broad comment for the Board of Education, you can attend our in-person evening board meetings anytime. We always have 2 opportunities for community comment. I have 2 other hands, it looks like. Tina, you should be able to unmute yourself at this point.
Hi.
Hi, this is
this is together Tina Allen. So we are new to this, and it's very informative. We are very happy that we're listening to a lot of information today. So we just want to know, for the prep program that you offer, I know it starts probably from the 3rd grade, but for kids in like a self-contained classroom or with special needs, will they have a chance also? I don't know how, getting into the program, I guess.
So the specifics of it are really a question that you want to talk about in detail with either the PEP teacher or the principal of your building, or you can start with your classroom teacher, just because they can give you more detail. But every child should be evaluated for the program. Children who are not in a self-contained classroom are not disqualified from PEP. We have twice exceptional children in this district, and they should all be afforded access to all of it. Dr. Mioli may be able to jump in and give you a little more detail on where it is this year. But again, you should really address with your principal or teacher or PEP teacher in your building.
I think you answered the question. I just would add that all of the elements of the program are on the website If you look on our website, it talks about the requirements. They're different for every grade level. And it does start in 3rd grade. And we're almost back on track with that because we had a suspension of a number of the testing elements because of COVID, but we're rapidly almost back to normal with that.
Okay, thank you.
Let's say, I don't see any other hands up at this point. Does anybody else on the committee or from the Board of Ed have anything that you want to add at this point? Or Dr. BOE, any last thoughts from you, or are you good? Fantastic. So our next meeting is November 19th. We will have a presentation from Jean Painter, which I have very high expectations of now. And I think that we're all looking forward to it. And Dr. Mealy, I guess we'll hear back from you on proposed scheduling for some of the issues that we've discussed today. Thank you all. Have a good day, everyone.